Fundamentals of Faith, Lesson 1. In the name of Allah, the most merciful, the most compassionate, may peace and blessings be upon Muhammad and his pure household. With Allah's guidance, we embark on a new journey into the study of the fundamentals of faith, an essential foundation that every believer must firmly establish before delving into the details of religious practices and acts of worship. Just as a tree cannot bear fruit without strong and deep roots, righteous deeds cannot flourish without a solid foundation of faith. When discussing the knowledge of Allah and the concept of divine oneness, Tawhid, three fundamental disciplines serve as key tools for understanding this profound reality. al-Kalam, Islamic theology. This discipline lays down the foundations of Islamic belief and rational arguments for faith. Philosophy, a field that explores the nature of existence and seeks to understand the essence of things through reason. Irfan, Mysticism, a spiritual path that aspires to attain closeness to Allah through direct experience and inner realization. But an important question arises: are these three sciences essential for every Muslim, or are they merely optional paths of learning? Here, we must grasp a fundamental principle. Any knowledge that brings us closer to Allah and remains within the framework of the Holy Quran and Islamic teachings is beneficial and worthy of pursuit. Any understanding that broadens our perception of faith, deepens our certainty in Allah, His Messenger, and the Ahlul Bayt, and aligns with the established truths of revelation is valuable and deserving of our study. However, if a branch of knowledge, be it philosophy, mysticism, or even the natural sciences such as astronomy, physics, or chemistry, presents ideas that contradict the essence of Islam and its core principles, then it has no place in our intellectual framework. Not everything claimed under the name of science, thought, or philosophy is necessarily truth. The true measure of any knowledge is its harmony with the Quran and divine teachings. No matter the stature of the one who speaks it, if an idea does not align with divine truth, it holds no weight in our faith. For this reason, if one wishes to explore philosophy or mysticism, it is crucial to begin with al-Kalam, Islamic theology, as it forms the foundation upon which all other knowledge is built. Without a firm grasp of the principles of faith, one lacks the ability to discern between different philosophical perspectives, to distinguish truth from falsehood, or to confront intellectual doubts with clarity. But when a person deeply understands the fundamentals of religion, grounding their knowledge in both rational and scriptural evidence, they will walk a clear and unwavering path, unshaken by misleading doubts, and equipped with the wisdom to critically analyze various ideologies with insight and confidence. The difference between al-Kalam, philosophy, and Irfan. Before delving into the depths of the fundamentals of faith, it is essential to pause and understand the key differences between al-Kalam, Islamic theology, philosophy, and Irfan, mysticism. Although all three disciplines share the ultimate goal of knowing and reaching Allah, their methodologies and approaches differ significantly. Al-Kalam focuses on establishing the foundations of Islamic beliefs and proving them through rational arguments based on the Quran, Sunnah, and intellect. Philosophy delves into the nature of existence, analyzing concepts such as causality, matter and immateriality, eternity and temporality. Irfan, mysticism, takes the path of the heart and inner spiritual experience to attain divine knowledge, viewing the truth of God as something that manifests itself to those who purify their hearts and illuminate their souls. Choosing among these paths requires profound understanding to ensure that one does not get lost in the pursuit of knowledge without grasping the ultimate truth. The best starting point is always al-Kalam, as it acts as a stronghold that safeguards faith from deviation and confusion. Let us begin from here, taking the first step on the ladder of certainty, moving towards the light of conviction. Key differences between al-Kalam, philosophy, and Irfan. Having highlighted the importance of studying various sciences to deepen our understanding of faith, we now turn to an essential comparison between three major disciplines: al-Kalam, philosophy, and Irfan. Each of these sciences approaches divine realities from a distinct perspective, utilizing its own unique methodology in reasoning and analysis. 1. al-Kalam, Islamic theology. Al-Kalam is concerned with Islamic creed and the fundamentals of faith. addressing issues directly related to the beliefs of Muslims. This discipline explains and defends the 5 core tenets of faith: Tawhid, divine oneness, belief in the absolute oneness of Allah; Adl, divine justice, belief in Allah's justice in His actions and rulings; Nubuwwah, prophethood, belief in the mission of the prophets; Imamah, divine leadership, belief in divinely appointed leadership after the prophet; Ma'ad, resurrection, belief in the afterlife and the day of judgment. This science relies on 3 primary sources in its analysis and arguments: the Holy Quran, the fundamental source of Islamic doctrine; the Sunnah and traditions of the Ahlul Bayt, peace be upon them, providing interpretations and explanations of Quranic concepts; rational principles, used in harmony with religious texts, rejecting any reasoning that contradicts the Quran and Hadith. Thus, al-Kalam is deeply rooted in religious teachings, aimed at strengthening faith and defending it against doubts through rational discourse while remaining within the framework of divine revelation. 2. Philosophy. Philosophy, unlike al-Kalam, does not begin with religious doctrines, but instead seeks to understand the nature of existence itself. It explores the principles that govern reality and attempts to derive theological conclusions from them. Some of the major questions philosophy addresses include: is existence a cause or an effect? Is it eternal or created? Is it material or immaterial? Is it necessary or contingent? Throughout history, philosophers have proposed various theories about existence. For example, Mullah Sadr al-Mutalihin, introduced the idea that existence has varying degrees of intensity, similar to light, which ranges from the dim glow of a candle to the powerful radiance of the sun. Peripatetic philosophers, Mashai school, such as Ibn Sina, Avicenna, argued that existence is diverse and distinct, meaning each being has an independent existence separate from others. From this, it becomes evident that philosophy does not start with religious doctrine, but rather with universal metaphysical laws, aiming to build a rational framework for understanding God, the universe, and humanity. 3. Irfan, mysticism. Irfan differs significantly from both al-Kalam and philosophy. Instead of analyzing existence as a concept, like philosophy, or focusing on rational arguments for faith, like al-Kalam, Irfan is entirely devoted to the direct experience of Allah. Unlike philosophy, which examines hierarchies of existence and the relationship between cause and effect, mystics believe that the only true reality is Allah Himself, and everything else is merely a manifestation of His essence. In Irfan, the distinction between necessary and contingent, cause and effect, or the levels of existence becomes irrelevant. Mystics view the entire universe as a reflection of Allah's divine reality, seeking to eliminate all barriers between themselves and divine truth. The ultimate goal of Irfan is absolute Tawhid, seeing nothing in existence but Allah, perceiving everything else as merely a shadow of His eternal light. Conclusion. Through this comparison, we can see that al-Kalam serves as the defender of faith, relying on rational arguments and religious texts. Philosophy seeks to understand existence itself, using reason to establish the foundations of theological belief. Irfan transcends these discussions, aiming for direct experiential knowledge of Allah. Despite their differences, these disciplines can complement one another. Al-Kalam can benefit from philosophy to strengthen its rational arguments. Philosophy can draw from Irfan to deepen its insights into divine reality. Irfan can be supported by philosophy to refine its expressions and concepts. Ultimately, the pursuit of divine knowledge is a multifaceted journey, where different intellectual and spiritual paths lead to the same ultimate destination, the knowledge of Allah, the Most High. The fundamental characteristics of Irfan, mysticism. Irfan is distinguished by several core principles that set it apart from other religious and philosophical sciences. The most significant of these characteristics are: 1. The unity of truth. Mystics believe that existence is one and indivisible, a singular, absolute reality that does not accept multiplicity. Everything that appears distinct or separate in the world is, in fact, nothing more than varied manifestations of a single truth. In other words, what seems to be a diversity of beings and phenomena is merely different reflections of the same ultimate reality. Number 2. Manifestation and appearance. According to Irfan, the divine truth reveals itself in multiple forms throughout existence. Every entity in the universe, whether seen or unseen, is essentially a manifestation of the sacred essence of God. This means that everything we perceive is, in reality, a reflection of divine light, whether we consciously recognize it or not. Number 3. Divine names and attributes. Mystics believe that all actions and entities in the cosmos originate from the divine names and attributes of Allah. Every phenomenon in existence is an expression of one of God's names, such as the Merciful, Ar-Rahman, the All-Knowing, Al-Alim, or the Compeller, Al-Jabbar. Consequently, nothing in the universe is detached from God's essence, as all things are intrinsically connected to Him through His divine attributes. In theoretical Irfan, deep discussions have been conducted regarding this singular truth. One of the most debated theories is the unity of existence, Wadat al-Wujud, which has sparked extensive philosophical and theological discourse. This controversial concept has been subject to both criticism and further exploration by scholars. In our upcoming sessions, we will analyze these discussions in greater detail, addressing their various interpretations and implications. Summary and key takeaways. After examining the fundamental differences between Ilm al-Kalam, philosophy, and Irfan, we can summarize their distinctions as follows. Ilm al-Kalam, Islamic theology, focuses on the principles of faith and Islamic creed, relying on the Quran, Hadith, and rational reasoning that aligns with divine law. Philosophy investigates the nature of existence and its fundamental laws, seeking to understand reality through logical and rational analysis. Irfan mysticism emphasizes the absolute unity of divine existence, viewing everything in the cosmos as a manifestation of Allah's presence. Despite their differences, these disciplines represent diverse yet interconnected paths to truth. Ilm al-Kalam serves as a foundation for understanding philosophy, and philosophy, in turn, paves the way for a deeper appreciation of Irfan. Each contributes uniquely to the broader pursuit of divine knowledge. In the forthcoming discussions, we will delve deeper into each of these sciences individually, exploring their principles, methodologies, and intersections. The importance of knowing the fundamentals of faith in Islamic belief. Having clarified the differences between Ilm al-Kalam, philosophy, and Irfan, we now return to the core question. Why is understanding the fundamentals of faith so essential in shaping a correct Islamic belief system? The first step in attaining true knowledge begins with knowing Allah, and this cannot be achieved without first grasping the principles of faith. Without a firm grounding in the fundamentals of religion, a person may remain in a state of doubt and intellectual confusion when encountering philosophical or mystical discussions. This is why Ilm al-Kalam must be the first station on the journey toward divine knowledge. When an individual thoroughly understands Ilm al-Kalam and comprehends the 5 fundamental principles of faith, Tawhid, divine oneness, Adl, divine justice, Nubuwah, prophethood, Imama, divinely appointed leadership, and Ma'ad, resurrection and afterlife, they will be better equipped to engage with philosophical and mystical ideas without falling into ideological pitfalls or confusion. A mind that is firmly rooted in sound theological principles becomes more adept at analyzing philosophical and mystical concepts without being misled by false interpretations. For this reason, the Ahlul Bayt, peace be upon them, always emphasize the importance of knowledge in the formation of faith. Without a proper understanding of the fundamentals of religion, acts of worship become devoid of true meaning and spiritual depth. Imam Ali, peace be upon him, eloquently states, "The first step in religion is knowledge of Him, Allah. The perfection of this knowledge is faith in Him. The perfection of faith in Him is Tawhid, divine oneness. And the perfection of Tawhid is sincerity in worship." Thus, knowledge is the foundation, and pure Tawhid is the ultimate goal. Everything in between is built upon a proper understanding of divine truth. Worship without knowledge holds no value. Any act of worship that lacks true understanding fails to achieve its spiritual purpose. The essence of prayer, for instance, is not merely standing, bowing, and prostrating. Rather, it is a means to purify the soul from arrogance and selfish desires. As Lady Fatima al-Zahra, peace be upon her, beautifully states, prayer was prescribed to cleanse you from arrogance. If prayer does not lead to this effect and instead becomes a set of mechanical movements, it turns into mere physical exercise, devoid of any spiritual depth. The same applies to all acts of worship. if they are not rooted in true knowledge of Allah, they lose their profound impact on the soul. Even if a person were to perform 1,000 units of prayer daily, but lacked a proper understanding of faith, they would gain nothing but physical exhaustion rather than spiritual enlightenment. Similarly, reciting the Quran without comprehending its meanings or uttering supplications without understanding their significance will not bring a person closer to the essence of Tawhid, divine oneness, and true faith. This is why the true journey of faith must begin with al-Kalam, Islamic theology, as it provides the foundational beliefs that give meaning and depth to all acts of worship. The next step. After understanding the fundamentals of faith, transitioning to religious practices. Once a person has gained a deep understanding of the fundamentals of faith, the next stage is the application of this knowledge through religious obligations and acts of worship, known as the branches of religion, furu al-din. If one lacks proper knowledge of their fundamental beliefs, their acts of worship become hollow rituals with no true impact on their soul or daily life. What are the branches of religion? The branches of religion include the following: prayer, salah, the pillar of worship and direct connection with Allah; fasting, psalm, a means of self-discipline and strengthening the will; pilgrimage, hajj, an embodiment of servitude and submission to Allah; almsgiving, zakat, purification of wealth and promotion of social justice; comes religious tax, supporting religious causes and maintaining Islamic values; enjoining good, amr bil ma'ruf, encouraging moral and righteous conduct in society; forbidding evil, nahi al-munkar, combating corruption and moral deviations; jihad, struggle for justice, defensive or under the leadership of the infallible imam, protecting faith in the community; allegiance, tawali, loving and supporting the Ahlul Bayt, peace be upon them; disassociation, tabari, dissociating from the enemies of the Ahlul Bayt. The problem of misguided religious education in some households. Unfortunately, in many households, religious education begins with the branches of religion rather than the fundamentals. For instance, children are often forced to pray without understanding the meaning behind it. They are not first taught about Tawhid, divine justice, prophethood, imamate, or resurrection. This creates a serious problem. As religious obligations are imposed without awareness or spiritual connection, they become mere habits rather than heartfelt acts of devotion. As a result, many individuals may later drift away from faith because they were never taught why they pray, nor given the deeper reasons behind worship. Why is it obligatory for every Muslim to learn the fundamentals of faith? A crucial question arises: is it enough to merely know the names of the fundamentals of faith? For example, can we say that Tawhid simply means belief in one God? Divine justice means that Allah is just. Prophethood means that He sent messengers. Imamate refers to divine leadership, and resurrection means belief in the afterlife? The answer is no, this is not sufficient. Faith must be built on clear rational and scriptural evidence. A Muslim must understand their beliefs through reasoning and argumentation, not merely through imitation or blind adherence. Why must faith be based on knowledge rather than imitation? Allah has created human beings as free and accountable beings, responsible for their own beliefs and actions. On the Day of Judgment, every person will be questioned not merely about whether they followed their parents' or society's beliefs, but about whether their faith was based on conviction and understanding. This is why one's belief must stem from both intellect and heart, not mere blind imitation. All acts of worship and religious obligations ultimately depend on these fundamental principles. The first path to knowing Allah: innate disposition, fitra. The simplest and most direct way to recognize the existence of Allah is through fitra, the innate nature that Allah has placed within every human being. This innate awareness drives individuals to seek truth and to question their existence. Stages of innate disposition in recognizing Allah. The initial stage: natural and spontaneous awareness. Every rational person with an uncorrupted soul perceives the order and harmony in the universe. This naturally leads them to ask, who created this intricate system? From the movement of the sun and moon, to the mountains and seas, to the complexity of human intellect and emotions, all of these point to a higher power governing the universe. This awareness does not require deep philosophy or advanced reasoning, It is a simple and natural recognition present in every individual, unless distorted by external influences. The advanced stage, conscious and intellectual recognition. In this stage, a person moves from instinctive belief to rational investigation. Here, al-Kalam, Islamic theology, plays a crucial role. It protects individuals from doubts and misconceptions by providing logical and theological proofs for belief in Allah. For instance, if someone claims, "I do not believe in God," a believer should not simply respond with, "I believe because my parents taught me so." Instead, they must be able to present clear and rational arguments to support their belief. Fitra as the foundation, but reason as the reinforcement. While innate awareness, fitra, serves as the first entry point into knowing Allah, it must be strengthened by rational arguments and theological proofs. This ensures that faith remains unwavering, even when challenged by doubts and ideological distortions. Thus, the journey to true belief begins with one's innate recognition of the divine, but it is completed and solidified through intellect, study, and reasoned understanding. The final conclusion. The fundamentals of faith, Usul al-Din, serve as the foundation of all Islamic beliefs. Without a firm understanding of these principles, a person's acts of worship become mere rituals devoid of spiritual meaning. Learning the fundamentals of faith is a religious obligation upon every Muslim. It must be based on evidence and reasoning rather than mere superficial knowledge. Fitra, innate disposition, is the first natural path to recognizing Allah, but it requires intellectual reinforcement to solidify faith and protect it from doubts. Once a person has deeply understood the fundamentals of faith, they can move on to the branches of religion, furu al-din. Only then do acts of worship gain their true value and impact on the heart and soul. Thus, a proper understanding of Usul al-Din is the true starting point of faith, making every act of worship and every deed meaningful in both this life and the hereafter. The advanced stage of fitra and the proof of the truthful, dalil al-Siddiqin. As previously discussed, fitra is the first guiding light that leads a person to the recognition of Allah. However, it is not merely a simple feeling. It has higher stages that can elevate a person to the most profound levels of divine knowledge. At this advanced stage, fitra transforms into what is known as dalil al-Siddiqin, the proof of the truthful. This is one of the strongest and deepest intellectual arguments for the existence of God, and it is the proof upon which the prophets and infallible imams, peace be upon them, based their knowledge of Allah. The difference between ordinary perception and the knowledge of the prophets and imams. An ordinary person begins by observing creation and the natural world, then uses these observations to infer the existence of Allah. In other words, they see the effects first, then search for the cause. The prophets and imams, peace be upon them, however, begin with Allah himself. They see the absolute divine truth first, and from that knowledge of God, they perceive the reality of all creation. This means that the thought process is completely reversed between ordinary people and the divine scholars of truth. While most people seek Allah through his signs in creation, the awliya, friends of God, see Allah first, and through him, all other truths become clear. Imam Hussein, peace be upon him, eloquently expresses this reality in Dua Arafah, where he asks, "O my Lord, when have you ever been absent that we need evidence to prove your existence?" The meaning behind this profound statement. In this supplication, Imam Hussein, peace be upon him, uses the word gairuka, other than you, referring to creation and all other beings. He asks, has there ever been a time when Allah was hidden, requiring another entity to prove him? The answer is clear. Allah's existence is more evident than anything else. He is the ultimate reality, and everything else is merely a reflection of his divine light. Thus, the issue is not that Allah is hidden. Rather, the hearts of people are veiled from perceiving his presence. Usul al-Din, the true foundation of worship and closeness to Allah. With this understanding, it becomes clear that religion is built upon true knowledge of divine reality. When this knowledge is correct and profound, acts of worship naturally lead to spiritual enlightenment and closeness to Allah. However, if worship is practiced without deep understanding, it becomes nothing more than repetitive rituals lacking inner meaning. Imam Jafar al-Sadiq, peace be upon him, beautifully illustrates this in his statement, 2 units of prayer from a scholar are better than 70 years of worship from an ignorant person. Why is the worship of a scholar more valuable than that of an ignorant person? A scholar worships with true knowledge and awareness of Allah. An ignorant person merely repeats actions without understanding their deeper significance. The difference is that the scholar knows the path they are walking, while the ignorant may be performing acts without direction or purpose. Thus, worship is not merely about physical actions. It is a means of spiritual growth and a journey of the soul toward Allah. If it is practiced without knowledge, it fails to nurture the heart and soul. The proof of necessary existence and the need for God. The first and most fundamental concept to study in Usul al-Din is the proof of wajib al-wujud, necessary existence. In Arabic, the term wajib, necessary, refers to something that cannot be non-existent. It is absolute and self-sustaining. Wajib al-wujud refers to a being whose existence is necessary and cannot be absent. This entity is the source of all other existence, and that entity is Allah. Why is Allah called wajib al-wujud? Because he exists by himself and does not depend on anything else for his existence. His existence is eternal. He was never non-existent, nor will he ever cease to exist. This concept is central to Islamic theology, as it establishes Allah as the absolute foundation of all being. The difference between wajib in fiqh and wajib al-wujud in theology. In fiqh, Islamic jurisprudence, when we say prayer is wajib, it means that it is an obligation, something required of Muslims, and failure to perform it results in punishment. When we say fasting is wajib, it means that leaving it without a valid excuse leads to sin. In theology, Aqidah, the term wajib means something that must exist by necessity. Wajib al-wujud does not refer to an obligation imposed on someone, but rather an essential, self-sufficient reality that cannot be non-existent. Types of obligations in fiqh and usul al-din. In fiqh, there are two types of wajib obligations. Wajib aini, individual obligation, a duty that must be performed by each individual. Examples: prayer, you must pray yourself, others cannot pray on your behalf. Fasting, no one can fast in your place, it is a personal duty. Wajib kifai, collective obligation, a duty that, if fulfilled by some, is no longer required of others. Examples: funeral prayer, if some Muslims perform it, the obligation is lifted from the rest. Defensive jihad, if enough people defend the faith, others are not required to participate. Is learning usul al-din an individual or collective obligation? Now, we arrive at an important question. Is it wajib aini, a duty upon every Muslim personally, or wajib kifai, only required of some scholars? This will be the topic of our next discussion. We now understand the difference between individual and collective obligations, and in the next session, we will explore whether learning Usul al-Din is a personal duty for every Muslim, or if it is sufficient for scholars to know it on behalf of others. May Allah send peace and blessings upon Muhammad and his family, grant us knowledge and understanding, and guide us to his straight path. You've been with the Sacred Narratives Hub by Mansoura Shoberi.